Welcome to the Boldest You podcast. I'm your host, Carrie, and I'm thrilled to bring you real conversations with bold women and men. In this podcast, we dive deep into their stories, exploring what drives their courage, shapes their vision, and fuels their desire to leave a lasting impact. These are honest, vulnerable, and inspiring moments that celebrate what it means to be bold. Let's discover their legacies together. Our bold woman of the hour is Darcy Bakkegard. Darcy Bakkegard is the co-founder and executive director of the Educators Lab. A teacher for over a decade, Darcy creates professional learning experiences for school districts and organizations to foster collaboration and drive problem solving. She designed and facilitates the Teacher Empowerment Incubator, a pilot program that supports rural teachers as community collaborators and innovators. Her nonprofit, The Joy Project, helps teachers design solutions to everyday problems they encounter, reigniting the joy of teaching and learning. She's always up to brainstorm and collaborate. Darcy is also a mom to 3 and resides in Fargo, North Dakota. Darcy and I met after she presented at Disrupt HR, an event in Fargo, and we had a great conversation today about life changes and transitions and how we can grow through them. I do want to note that Darcy does mention miscarriage, so if that is a sensitive topic to you, I encourage you to skip the first few minutes of the episode. Our conversation today also talks about how we can go into the holiday season with a new mindset and things to try and test out. I'm excited for you to get to know Darcy, so let's get into it. Hi, Darcy. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Thanks for having me, Carrie.
All right, well, we are going to jump right in. So to get us started, Darcy, tell me about a time that you've had to be bold.
Man, I think of bold, like there's the bold in the little ways, right? Where you say something when maybe your inclination is not to say anything and you take the initiative and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to say something. Whether it's a compliment or a concern or whatever. And so I think that I try to, as I've gotten older, that type of boldness has become easier for me because I have maybe a little less of a filter. And so that type of boldness I've really committed to like if someone's doing something awesome, even if I don't know them, I'm just going to go and talk to them and say that. And I don't know that is bold, but having grown up in North Dakota, where you don't necessarily say those things out loud, it does feel a little bit bold. So I'm trying to embrace that kind of like the day-to-day boldness of just being a little bit more outgoing is probably a better word for it than bold. But in terms of big boldness, I was married before my current relationship. And so I had met and fell in love with a guy. We lived on a hobby farm in rural Wisconsin. I had a llama named Tony and sheep. And I was teaching at a school in rural Wisconsin and really thought, like this is it. And shortly after we got married, I had a miscarriage. And I was devastated. And in that moment when we found out, I felt like he was visibly relieved. And he denied it at first. And then about 6 months later, he said, you were right. I was relieved. And that made me realize I don't ever want kids. And that was a conversation we had. I really wanted children. And so the boldness came as we were figuring that out. I failed to be bold, to be honest. I failed to be bold for about a year. I really struggled with what do I do with this? It felt like there was no solution that I would win, so to speak. I either had to give up a whole life that I had built with someone that I cared about, and leave that life and then not know. I mean, I still might never have kids, like, right? If this was my person, like I might then be single for the rest of my life. Or do I stay in this life and give up this idea of something that I've always wanted? I was a teacher, I'm an aunt 16 times over. Like, could that be enough? And I really, really struggled, and am grateful that finally he had the first act of boldness. About a year after that conversation, he came home and said, like, we're just not a couple anymore. Like, we just don't
Mm.
have that connection with each other. And he was right. And through that horrible grossness, like, there's just, I mean, everything about it, like, it really was heavy and awful. I felt ashamed. I was embarrassed. Like, I felt like a failure. All of the things. And through that, I decided, if this is a very unexpected change of events, I am going to try to do something else, something I have always wanted to do. So, what does that look like? And I decided for me that was teaching overseas. I had in college, I had filled out a Peace Corps application, but never submitted it. I had studied in London for 4 months, and so I did a semester abroad, but hadn't done more than that, but had always been interested. And it was kind of a dream idea that I let go of because I thought my life was
Mm.
settled. And then when my life was completely thrown upside down, I decided that was my opportunity. So I moved back to Fargo and I taught here for 1 year, so that I could save up money and be with my family while I was kind of just trying to kind of heal and figure things out from this major life event. So now I'm in my early 30s. I think I was 32. And then I went to an overseas teaching fair, and it's a fast pace. I mean, it's like speed dating, but for jobs teaching overseas. So by the end of the Friday, I had 5 job offers. By Saturday morning, I had signed a contract with Robert College in Istanbul, Turkey, and finished out my year, and then did 2 years teaching in Turkey and getting to live in a place. I mean, it really was a dream. Like, there are times I think back on it and can't believe that it actually happened. Um, and it's so weird how life throws these things at you that feel like the absolute end. Like, there is
Mhm.
no way I'm bouncing back from this. Like, right, this is it. I'm destroyed. And that can become an amazing opportunity. Like, I got to do so much travel. I met such incredible people. I got to I was the director of theater at this school. I mean, like, my dream job, all of these things that act of boldness on my former partner's part of just saying, this is done, and him having
Mhm.
the boldness to take that step created an opportunity for me to embrace this boldness of a dream that I'd always had, and I got to live it and do it. And now in my mid 40s, I have no regrets. There was a
Mm.
long time there where I really regretted that we had gotten married, and I don't now. All of those chapters have made me who I am. I like to joke that I don't really have different chapters in my life story. I have a few different books, like the book from when I was living on a hobby farm in rural Wisconsin, and the book where I was teaching overseas, and now I'm back in Fargo. Um, and I am so appreciative that he had the boldness, like I said, to take that action, and that I had the wherewithal in that pain and in all of that confusion to see one bead of clarity and say, there is an opportunity in this.
Mm.
This absolutely sucks, but there is an opportunity in this. And so what am I going to do with that opportunity? And I think that's the boldest opportunity that I've embraced.
Wow. There is so much in your story, and as you were saying, it's not chapters, it's books. I was like, your life story is a series, the series of Darcy's life. And I just think it's so fascinating. There's so many things that I want to hit on in that. But the first, I want to just acknowledge, thank you for sharing your story of a miscarriage. I know I'm sure that that was such a really hard thing to go through.
Yeah.
Um, but like you said, I think your story is such an example of how two things can be true at once. Things can be really, really hard, and there can be things that, yeah, like you said, feel like the end of the world, and how will I ever recover from this? And it created this beautiful moment of being able to
Amazing.
travel and see the world, and really fulfill dreams that you had had at one point, that you maybe thought, okay, this isn't where my life's supposed to go, but you somehow found your way back there. And I think that's just such a interesting story. And I loved that you acknowledged that it was his bold choice that kind of sparked some of this, because I definitely think at times that could be seen as a downfall, right? Of, well, I didn't make that choice and I was kind of backed into this corner. But at the end of the day, I think it's wonderful to acknowledge that sometimes it does take that. Sometimes it does take people in our life to be able to spark that moment, and then for us to be able to go, okay, where do I go from here? What's next for me? So I just wanted to
And for
acknowledge those
me,
things.
I appreciate that. And I think for me, what you were just saying of that being able to get to the what's next, I was
Mhm.
trapped in the sticky middle of indecision and not knowing.
Mm,
And for me, maybe it's because I'm a type A person who tends to live by checklists and getting things done and things like that. That was the most uncomfortable year, I think, because I couldn't make a decision and I was
mhm.
really, really struggling. And it's not the same as receiving a diagnosis, but I sometimes think the hardest part, if you're going through a medical challenge, is that in between time of having some tests and not having the results,
Yes, for
right?
sure.
And knowing
Mhm.
that there is something, but anytime there is this gray that is unknown, that sticky middle for me is the most uncomfortable. And I now have the clarity to say how grateful I am that my ex had the strength to make a decision because I
Mm,
didn't. And yes, it was not the decision that I had envisioned when we got married, but
mhm.
his ability to make that decision, then I could start taking action and
Yeah.
making choices. But I was stuck in this gray cloud. I mean, and it really was a physical cloud, a mental cloud of, I mean, all of that's
Mhm.
the probably the best way to describe it. And
Yeah.
him having the ability to see through that, um, yeah, that put me on the other side of the cloud to then start to figure things out. And so I don't know
Yes.
if that's true for other people, but for me, I think it's as soon as I know, even if, like you were saying, even if it's not the outcome that I wanted or anticipated, at least I know, and now I can move
Mhm.
forward.
Yes. I know I can relate. Comfortability is something I've been thinking a lot about recently after a therapy session
Yeah.
I had about a month ago, where we were talking about how, because I am very much the same. Type A, I like to have control. And oftentimes, the lack of control is what makes us feel uncomfortable, as you were just mentioning. And so we can just get stuck in this mud of, well, I can't move forward. I can't move backwards. Like I'm just stuck because I don't know what is going to happen regardless. And so I have learned to protect myself in not probably the healthiest ways by just not making decisions or not doing the hard things, because it feels uncomfortable. It's scary to do those things. But I am sure so many other people feel that way. Do you think now, being, I'm going to guess it's 20-ish years later, do you feel like that's still something that's hard for you, or do you feel like life has kind of taught you how to embrace that uncomfortability a bit more?
Great question. I think I'm better at it because so I'm 46. So yes, it's about 15 years later. Um, I think I'm better at it and way better than I was at it in my 20s for sure, in part because I have a better sense and acceptance of it's going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you're trusting in a higher power, the universe, like whatever that is for you, there have been enough things in my life that have happened that that old saying of things tend to work out. um, I now am living. If you asked my 17-year-old self, like what my life would look like when I was in my 40s. I'm living it almost
Mm,
to a T, except for the fact that my 18-year-old self would have thought that my kids would be like in high school now, and my kids are 5.
sure.
So because I'm an older than average, when you don't have your kids until you're 40 because of all those things that we just talked about, so things work out. And the
Yeah.
path that life took me on, I love that film, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Hmm.
And I love that idea of there being multiple versions of ourselves in all of
Yeah.
these different stories of all of the different possibilities. And every once in a while, I think about that. And yeah, like what if I had stayed in Istanbul? What if I had stayed in Wisconsin? Like what if, like playing the what if game
Yeah.
a little bit, but not because I have regrets. For me, the what if game has become kind of fun because the life I'm living truly is the best one. Like
Yeah.
it's incredible the way things came together by just believing and trusting and moving forward. So I think now when I'm faced with ambiguity, I have a little bit more perspective, a little bit
Yeah.
more faith in the universe and the system of something is going to come of this. I don't know what, but I know what I can control. And all I can
Mhm.
control are my reactions and how I choose to respond to the things that are happening around me. And I know I will choose to make something good out of whatever happens. And for me, I
Mm.
think that has become, I mean, not on a daily, like, right, I still freak out about things. Like, I still get
Yep, we
upset.
all do.
But I think, like, as a general overarching perspective, I think that knowledge that I have the control to choose how to respond to these situations is enough control for me that even in the most
Mhm.
ambiguous circumstances, I know it's going to be fine.
Oh, I love that perspective. And as you were sharing, something that I was thinking of is this concept of everything will work out. And I think that's something too through my life journey. I've had to remind myself of all the twists and turns that in the moment felt like what in the world is happening truly have got me where I am today. And like you said, I
Yeah.
similarly don't have the regrets, and it's just been a learning opportunity. But I think it's funny that in those moments when I've been faced with those things, someone telling me everything's going to work out is one of the most infuriating things to hear.
It's
And
horrible.
it's
It's
like you
horrible.
said, it's the perspective of being on the other side and being able to, in those moments, remind myself, like, okay, this other time when I thought choosing this college wasn't the right choice or doing this other thing, and all these moments that, again, I was like, oh, that's not what I had planned, got me to where
Mhm.
I am today, and I have no regrets about that. Um, so it's just funny how those, again, two things can be true at once. We can love and hate that phrase at the same time.
Yes. And I love, yeah, you're right. When we say it to ourselves, it's different. It's the same thing, though, if someone gives you advice that you're not ready for. My husband sent me an article from the New York Times, and it had the 3 questions to ask. And this might pertain to
Ooh.
you here. You ask someone, if someone is coming to you with a problem or concern, like they vent, whatever, you ask them, do you want to be heard? Do you want to be hugged? Or do you want to be helped? And
Mm.
that idea of the 3 H's, heard, hugged, or
Mhm.
helped, because when you're right in the beginning of something, most of the time, you just want to be heard, maybe hugged, depending on how much Norwegian you are. like, right, like how
So
North
true.
Dakotan you are. You maybe want to be hugged, but probably you just want to be heard. And you don't actually want any of the aphorisms. You don't want any of those affirmations.
Hmm.
You just want to be able to say the things that are on your mind and on your heart, and to have
Hmm.
someone sit with you in that moment. And for me as a friend, that just sitting is so hard.
So
And
hard.
maybe it's the same for you, Carrie, because of that, like, take control kind of mindset. I'm like, well, what are we going to do to fix this? Let's create an action plan. And like you were saying, though, if you're in that moment of I don't want to hear that right now. And you just want
Mhm.
to sit. And so I have been repeating that to myself. My husband shared it with me as a way to talk to our children. But I think
Sure.
as much as it's a good thing, like, do you just need a hug right now? Do we want to problem solve right now? But I have found, for me personally, it's been more relevant for my work life and like
Mhm.
my adult friendships of, oh yeah, because
Yeah.
me jumping to problem solving mode and helping is not always helpful. And if my goal is to help,
Mm.
sometimes I need to just hush and let the person be heard and be there with them and offer a
Yeah.
hug. And then when they're ready, we can shift into help mode if necessary.
Yes. Oh, I so relate to everything that you just said. My husband and I were having a conversation about a week ago and just talking through something, and I vocally said, like, I am uncomfortable because I do not have control over this and I cannot fix it. And it was that idea of like, I am also a fixer. Like, if there is a problem, okay, like you said, the checklist, like, all right, what are the things we need to do? How are we going to do this? And that's not life. Like, in reality, we can't fix everything. And like you said, so many of those times with our friends, especially in adulthood, like, there's so many things that people are dealing with that we cannot control in any way for them, and all they need is our love. And so that is a great reminder of, in those moments, okay, yes, do you need to be heard, hugged, or helped? And just using
Mhm.
that as that baseline and giving yourself the permission to not have to fix it. I think that's really been helpful for me too in those
Great
moments. Is okay,
point.
this
Because, yeah,
this is not
why
mine to
is that
fix.
your
And
burden? Yeah, that's
exactly,
not
yes. And
your
oftentimes
burden,
they're like, they
Carrie,
don't
to do
want it,
that.
like
Yeah.
you said. Like, yeah, just
Good. I
releasing that
just saw a
control a little
meme.
bit.
I just saw like a little meme online that said something about some of y'all are really in love with your problems. And what you just said, because you're right. Sometimes people don't want to fix something,
Hmm.
and whether it's want or ready, right? They might
Yeah.
not be ready to fix
Yep.
it, or they might genuinely not actually want to fix it. Like, for whatever
Yeah.
reason, that is
Yep.
theirs. And I can still be there to hear them and hug them,
Hmm.
but it's not my burden. And I love what you were saying of just saying out loud. I imagine it helped just saying, this is out of my control and I cannot fix this, is a
Mm.
really powerful way to acknowledge, like, I didn't do anything to create this problem.
Mhm.
This exists and I can't do anything. And
Yep.
so, I mean, and I don't want people to think, because I really don't. I don't put on rose-colored glasses. I don't pretend that
Mm-mm.
things are all fine, but I
Right.
do try to acknowledge that Stephen Covey circle of control, influence,
Yes.
and concern, and the seven
Mhm.
habits of a highly effective person. What can I control? And as we already said, I can control me, and that is it.
Yep.
And man, as a parent, I will tell you, like, that is a hard pill to swallow of, I cannot control them. I can try to influence them. I can try
Mhm.
to blow wind in their sails and guide them in certain directions. Um, and I can stop some things. Like, right, I am the parent.
Sure.
But in general, I cannot control what they do,
Mhm.
how they, like, I can't. So all I can do is control myself, how I am choosing to respond, how I am choosing to show up every day.
Mhm.
And sometimes I need to say that out loud, like more often, what you were saying. I cannot control this. I cannot
Mhm.
fix this. This is where we are right now, and
Yep.
that is okay.
What do I want to do next? And I think that's such a good example of going back to your teaching in Istanbul, right? Like, there were elements of that you could control and elements that you couldn't. And so once you had that information, making that choice, and talk about uncomfortability. I am sure moving from North Dakota to Istanbul was quite the shock. So I'd love to hear more about that experience and just how you acclimated or things that you did while you were there to really embrace that part of your life.
My favorite little anecdote is, my students would say, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm from North Dakota." And no one knows where North Dakota is. I mean, people in the United States don't even know where North Dakota is
Yeah.
half the time. And so I would say, "I'm from South Central Canada." And they could kind of picture that, like the center of North America. And then I would really play it up. I would go, "In my state, there are like 10 big towns, and I'm from one of the big towns." And I would really play it like all of this stuff. And then I would go, "In my town, there were almost 10,000 people." And the kids would die laughing and go, "You're from a village. Did you raise goats in your village? Like, what are you talking about?" Because Istanbul is a city of 10 million people. And so, like, just the little neighborhood that we lived in, Arnavutköy, was probably close to 10,000 people. And so the kids, that's one of my favorite things. And then I think the other culture shock that was hardest to adjust to, which we already alluded to, of do you actually want to be hugged? Turkish culture is very close.
Hmm.
They have very small personal space. And maybe it's because there are so many people crammed together, but it's very common to see boys walking arm in arm. It's very common to
Hmm.
see fathers and sons walking down the street holding hands. And I mean like adult fathers and sons, like
Hmm.
a man who is 60 holding his 30-year-old son's hand. It was very common to just see piles of students, like all kind
Hmm.
of draped on each other. And so when students would come to talk to me, they would talk really close. And that was probably honestly the hardest. If I had to pick one thing, like obviously the language, there are challenges,
Sure.
but on a day to day, but it's a great, again, it's an opportunity to do something else, right? It
Hmm.
is very culturally expected that when you meet someone new, you give them a hug and a kiss on both
Hmm.
cheeks.
Hmm.
And for me, from here, that was really hard. And so, do
Yeah.
I stick to what I have always known and really be rude? Or do I use this as an opportunity to try something different? And I would say that it was helpful because then when I came back, I started doing something that I had not done when I was a younger teacher. And I would ask students, "Do you need a hug?"
Hmm.
And I was way more comfortable, I think, and I haven't really thought about this, but I'm trying to like picture, did I ever hug students before I went to Turkey? And I did, but I don't think in the
Sure.
same, I think in a like a friendly, like
Sure.
congratulations kind of
Yeah.
way. But this was it shifted. And
Hmm.
when I was at West Fargo, I would actively, talk to kids like, "Do you just need a hug?" Like juniors and seniors in high
Hmm.
school, because I taught
Yeah.
upper high school. And it was amazing the number of times that kids would say yes. And then
Hmm.
I think that by leaning into, all right, this is a cultural expectation, it gave me this gift. I don't walk around Fargo hugging and kissing people on both cheeks. I'm not crazy, but it did help me see that those close relationships was really healthy for those students. Like the fact that they had
Hmm.
that with each other and had that with other adults in their life. And, that I could be that person and I could take on a slightly different role. So I don't think that's quite what
Hmm.
you're talking about, but I would say maybe
No.
culturally, that's the one thing that I kind of seeped into um, that different perspective and being more comfortable just standing at my doorway. As a high school teacher, I think more elementary school teachers are used
Sure.
to hugging their littles, but just saying, I think, if you would like a hug, And I am one of those people who, if I'm going to hug you, you are going to be hugged. We're not half-assing it. We're not doing the like awkward, like I'm
Yep.
going to hug you. If we're doing
Hug.
it, we're doing it. Um, and I found that I would end up having, students come all the my way who were no longer my students would come
Hmm.
to my classroom for a hug. And I think that that's a big gift that any of us. So, and this was before I had heard the hugged helped, or
Yeah.
heard, trio, that I had incorporated hugging as a healing tool for my
Mm.
students. And so I know that's hard for people who are in a workplace. It might start to get a little weird. And I would never hug a student without their permission. Um,
Yes, of course.
but I do think we are, as American culture, and maybe here in the upper Midwest even more so, um, not prone to that. That is not
Hmm.
our natural setting. And I think that there's some opportunity for growth to be able to do that, because sometimes even at work, somebody needs a hug.
Hmm. And I think as you're sharing the cultural differences, I think back to a class I took in college. It was technically a marketing class, but a lot of it just talked about how different cultures respond in different settings. And I remember
Mhm.
thinking about that of, yeah, how like certain things that happen in America, and this class is a little bit more business centric, but just the way that we approach things versus other countries, and how that doesn't necessarily make one right or wrong. It's just, can you open your
No,
perspective? Can you be understanding of different culture and embrace them and understand, okay, is this how I connect with these people? And be okay, like you said, getting out of your comfort zone and embracing that and bringing that back. I think of teachers. I have a lot of teachers in my family, and I know the impact that teachers can have on students. And just that thought of being that safe person for someone on a hard day. Like high school is not easy. If I think back to high school, the amount of times that you're dealing with
no.
just life stuff, and knowing that there's a teacher that cares about you and is willing to give you that hug if you need one. And I think in a workplace, you're right, like sometimes we do just need to give a hug, or maybe it's a hypothetical hug of like, hey, I'm here to listen, I'm here to be a safe person for you, if they're not comfortable with that, right? But just making it known that like, I do care about you, you're someone that I'm here. And I
Yeah.
think making that known.
And conversely, celebrating the little things. I think this is
Yes.
the little act of boldness that I was talking about at the beginning. Um, I think I'm surprised as an adult how much an "atta girl" means to me.
Yes.
You know? Do you know what I mean? But every once in a
110%.
while, I need someone to go, "Way to go." Like, you I mean, and I don't think I'm doing anything incredible, like, right? But even yesterday, I was thinking about it as I was laying down, because I was like, "Man, I didn't do anything today." And then I went, "Wait a minute. I fed my family 3 meals. I cleaned up
Hmm.
all of those meals. I loaded and unloaded the dishwasher twice because we were home. I made bars. I washed 5 loads of laundry.
Oh my
I
goodness.
played with my children. We cleaned up. Um, like I invited some of my nieces and nephews over for supper just spontaneously. I was like,
Hmm.
I'm just going to see who's available. And so some of my nieces and nephews who are in college, and I was like, come on over. And so we had a mini impromptu family supper,
I love that.
and like I read books to my kids. And so as I was thinking at the end of the day, I was like, why do I feel like I didn't do anything today?
Yes.
Knocked out a to-do list. And
Hmm.
maybe it's because none of those things had been written down ahead of time.
Sure.
And so I didn't actually cross any of them off a to-do list. They were just things that I did. But yeah, I mean, went to the grocery store, like all of
Hmm.
those just functioning in life things. And every
Yeah.
once in a while, I want a way to go. Like, yeah, the house looks great. Thank you.
Hmm. Yes. I think that's so real. Like I think so many times I have done the same thing. And like you said, the day-to-day life stuff doesn't feel as big of an accomplishment as my work checklist that I'm going to go through and I'm going to cross things off, and I can see some of the impact of those things. But we need to celebrate life. Like, we have to celebrate the little
Yeah.
things that happen and like the moments
And
that
I
bring us
want to
joy
be,
of.
yeah, and I've tried to, I think this is a better way of saying what I was trying to say at the beginning. I want to be the person who tells other people, attaboy,
Hmm.
attagirl, like that knocked my socks off. And
Yeah.
like just the fact that you got that done
Hmm.
is fantastic. And if we, I mean, just, I'm really into the power of joy and how do we,
Yeah.
and part of this is how do we find those opportunities, right? And so some of this is baked into all the stories that I have shared with you, that this is a way that I have been dealing with depression since my teens.
Hmm.
Because growing up in Valley City, North Dakota, it was not called depression. I was just a moody child.
Sure. Yes.
And then I happened to be in speech and theater. And so then I was
Mm.
just dramatic on top of that. Um, so trying to find my brain, and I think a lot of us, for survival reasons, our brains are wired to find the most dangerous scenario, right? To keep us safe.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
my brain does that. And I think a lot of our brains do that in times when we are in no danger, obviously,
Hmm.
because of where and when we live, but our brains are trying to protect us from something. And so to redirect those automatic thoughts instead of getting into this negativity vortex that really can suck you in. And if I get into that, my depression can really suck me down. So,
Yeah.
one way to help avoid that negativity vortex is choosing the kindest explanation for things
Mm.
and choosing to find the opportunity, right? Like finding the joy in these
Hmm.
situations. And it's really hard. And sometimes you can't do it in the moment.
Yeah.
You need to have, I mean, I still have temper tantrums. I have, like you have to have it's, and that's okay. I think you have to have that moment. And then you can come back to have the perspective of finding the joy, of finding the opportunity. And I want to do more to start those little ripples of joy. And I think that's part of the attaboy, attagirl kind of
100%.
challenge is what would happen if we all just every day acknowledged 5 good things in the people around
Hmm.
us.
Mm.
And I know, like, my husband doesn't like it. Sometimes he feels like I'm being condescending
Mm.
when I say, like, right, there's a fine line between
Yeah.
being, and I'm like, I am not being condescending. I genuinely appreciate that you loaded the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Thank you. But he hears it as me kind of, so you do have to be a little bit careful with the attaboys
Yeah.
so that you're not implying like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you actually got something done. And so there is that fine line. But yeah, what would happen if we all did that for at least 5 people every single day?
Hmm. And the more that you do it, I think the more naturally, like when you were mentioning the condescending aspect of it, I think when you first start it, yeah, people around you might be like, what's happening? Like, why is she recognizing these small things? But the more that you do that and it becomes just a really natural part, my inclination says that people are going to start to get used to it and recognize, oh, Carrie is someone who recognizes these small moments, or even for ourselves. You said other people. I think that we have to do that for ourselves too at the end of the day, of like what you just said
Great
earlier,
point.
like everything you listed, I was like, that's a busy day. Oh my gosh, you got like that's incredible. But like you said, I think it's so hard for us to look within and say, I did all these things. That equates to accomplishing it. And honestly, for me, it's the rest. Like I have had to celebrate the moments that I stop doing things and allow myself to sit on the couch instead of getting something done, or okay, I'm not going to wake up early this morning because I don't feel good enough to do that. Like allowing yourself to
It's a
celebrate those
great point.
things So
Yeah,
important.
because the add a girl doesn't need to be because I accomplished this big long checklist. When I was teaching, my background, my undergraduate degree is in theater. And so I took a little bit of a theater approach to my classroom in that every student deserves the best version of me that I can muster.
Mm,
Some days, the best version of me isn't great,
mm-hmm.
but they deserve, and and that's okay.
Yeah.
And they get the best version that I can be that day, because day to day, that capacity is really going to change. And you're right. So sometimes there have been moments in my life where, yeah, like having the strength to take a shower
Mm-hmm.
of would have deserved an atta girl, because that was the moment I was in. And then there are days, yeah, where atta girl for sitting and allowing your heart and your body and your head to rest.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so
you're
important
right.
and it's hard. Like it is crazy how it sounds so simple, and yet I think it's one of the hardest things that I've had to learn, and it's an everyday process. Like there are days I am still my own worst critic, like so
Always.
strongly, and other days where I'm like, okay, like it's that processing. And some of that I will accredit to therapy, like going there and learning certain tools and the processing and understanding, okay, how does my brain work and how do I combat that? Because you said it earlier, like I think my brain's constantly looking for the fight. Like, okay, even if everything's going perfectly, eventually something's not. So what am I going to do to solve it? How am
There's
I going to
there's a
prepare?
predator lurking right around the corner, like
Always.
right
Like there's
there.
always something that
Yeah,
my brain is looking
there's a
for.
woolly
And
mammoth ready to charge
yep,
you. Um,
always. And this time of year
Always.
too, I think going into a new year, it's so natural for our brains to think through those things because again, I don't know when that all started, but it's like, oh, the calendar resets. All of a sudden we have to fix every problem in our lives. And so like my brain, especially around the holidays and going into January, is starting to look at what are the what are the things I have to accomplish this year and what are all the things. And I think this last year something that I had seen to kind of help retrain my brain. There's a creator on Instagram who came up with this idea of like it's a becoming board instead of a vision board. And it really is the whole concept is to highlight the little things along the way and to celebrate those moments versus the end goal. Like, great, maybe you do achieve it, maybe you don't, but look at all the tiny little things that you did. And so some days it is just, okay, I wanted to read, great. I'm reading 5 pages today, or I'm celebrating the fact that I read a chapter or that I chose to read over scrolling social media. Those are the little
Mhm.
things that I think in time have helped my brain recognize like the goal is important. And I don't know that I will never not be a goal driven person, but so much
Sure.
more is important in the process and celebrating those small moments, like you said, even if it's just the act of today I took a shower because that's what I could do. Is yeah, I got to retrain the brain a little bit to understand like how we get to where we want to be.
To embrace that, how do we create what would be on your becoming board for like a beautiful holiday season that was truly
Mm,
a season of joy? Like, right, we're entering right now, it's early November, we're entering the season of Thanksgiving, we will be
mm.
shifting all of these things. But what types of things would be on your I'm becoming board for a fulfilling and meaningful holiday
Oh,
season?
that's a wonderful question. And it's actually something I've been thinking a lot about. Personally, I think for me, it's being present in the moments of the holidays because that's I think it's so easy for me to get pulled out of those moments because I'm thinking of the next thing or I'm thinking of like for example, my family does
Yes.
a cookie bake and I love this annual cookie bake. It's one of my favorite things about the holidays. We all get together, but I can get so stuck in the what do I have to bring? What like what's the timing? How are we getting there? What I'm like all the things and instead just okay, maybe my becoming board is I'm going to find joy in finding a new recipe. Like I'm going to look through my recipe books or I'm going to scroll on Pinterest. Um, and be excited about finding something new to try. Or I typically will make my stuff in advance because it's just a little bit easier. So maybe that's a fun activity I'm doing on a Saturday, to turn up holiday music with the Christmas tree in the background and I'm making my treat to bring. I think it's also, for me, I love to give like Christmas gifts. It's again one of my favorite parts, but it can go into an unhealthy space where I'm starting to stress about it. And same with the holiday cards. Like it's so crazy how these things I love also cause me so much stress. And so just
Right?
trying to like, it will get figured out, like you said before. So maybe it's the fun of thinking about that person and okay, what really would they love or what do they need? Um, or maybe it's just accepting like there isn't a perfect gift and it's okay to not give a perfect gift, or to I'm going to use gift bags instead of wrapping paper because I hate wrapping gifts. Like I'm the worst at
Yeah.
it. And so, okay, the joy is I'm going to go pick out really cute gift bags because that's going to make me a little less stressful and be more present in the moment. I'm not as stressed leading
Or
up to it,
buy
but
really cute Christmas themed pillowcases and
love,
then just put everything
yes,
in and slap a bow around it and then
the
keep those
best.
pillowcases and just think anything fits, everything fits,
Yes, I
no
love that.
waste. Do something. Here's a what if. I really love playing what if games for your holiday cookie thing, since there's some stress there. What if you didn't bake? What
Hmm.
if you offered to go shopping for supplies and
Mm.
you got to
Hmm.
satisfy your list,
True.
and you
Mm.
kind of you gathered from people. We know you need the basics: the butter, the eggs, the flour, the sugar, and the brown sugar, vanilla, like, right? But what else do people need?
Hmm.
And to save everyone time and hassle, I am going to bring stuff, and I am going to bring everything everyone needs for our holiday thing. You are going to be like that logistic person.
Hmm. Yep.
If that is something that, because I think there are some people, like, you might have a special skill that is something that you can offer to that.
Hmm.
And like, I'm going to bring plates and Ziploc bags so that we can sort the goodies and everybody can take everything home. And I will just help take care of all of the logistics. And I will be there that day just helping run point on
Hmm.
logisticking. And I've got the music and everyone just show up. But you don't need to bring a recipe, or, like,
Hmm.
sometimes I think it's fun thinking about how do we rethink some
Yeah.
of those traditions and embrace those things that make us different, and the things that
Yeah.
we're good at, and the things of where our comfort level is too, and play up
Right.
to that a little bit. And I
Yeah.
love what you said about being present.
Yes, I love the idea of using the what ifs in a positive way. Like, because I think so much we can get into the what ifs of like, oh, what if I don't bring this and then someone's upset? And
Yeah.
I love that mindset change of, well, what if this? Or what if, what if I am the person who owns this piece of this, even though I've never done that before? Or the other things too of, again, because the holidays for me, I'm such a tradition person, which is wonderful. And I'm so thankful my family has those traditions. But at times, it
Yes.
also has made the holiday seasons harder if those traditions don't get met because they're not going to every year, right? Like, I have a husband, we have two families we're trying to navigate during the season, and there's going to be times where it's just like, okay, that's not going to happen. But what if we do something different this year? What if we make our own tradition? Or what if we, do it on a different day? Like all those what ifs of, yeah, like you said, using it in a positive way to rethink this season, I think is so important. And it just takes that pressure off of like everything has to be perfect this time of year. And I think that's probably the biggest thing on my becoming board is these holidays happen twice a year. And like there is so much pressure put on December 24th and 25th, if you are someone who celebrates Christmas. Like, there's so much pressure put on those days. And a lot of it is myself. Like, I need to retrain my brain that, like, Christmas can be celebrated on any day of the year. It does not have to be those 2 days. And certainly there's things like going to our church service. Like I love that on Christmas Eve, but I can do that anywhere if it's not exactly, what's in my head, or I can watch it online, or there's so many other ways that it can be celebrated versus what I have created in my mind. So the embracing of like each day, what's going to happen that day, and being present and celebrating that moment versus
What about this for our holiday becoming board? Um, I am becoming present, not perfect.
hmm, that is, we all need that, and like a banner outside of our house and in our
Yeah. Like
offices, and
this holiday season,
yeah,
I will be present, not
not
perfect.
perfect. Yeah. I think
And
that takes
I
off
was
immediate pressure to show up
yeah,
just,
and
yeah.
and when you think about those things, yes, I mean like I get it. There are those special things. But everything that you just listed, if you think of the list of the things that you just gave, none of the things in your Christmas tradition was gifts. You didn't say
Hmm.
the word gift once,
That's so
even though that
true.
that is an important part for you. It was about your church service, and it was about your family and about being
Yeah.
together and like those things.
Hmm.
And that is a very different priority list
Yeah.
than the presence and that old family circus of I need to be present. Like it's
Yeah.
more about being present than the presence and
Yes.
that play on words. I was thinking about that too as a mom. My kids are almost 6, and so the holiday season, I will say, has become, I mean, like through the eyes of a child, those holidays are amazing. I mean, like it really
Hmm.
is mind blowing. Um, but I am reminded that there are these the seasons in life, and how many more days do I have? Um,
Mm.
I love getting to go on vacation with my husband because it allows us to relive those quiet mornings and our slower pace and kind of the quiet that we both had cultivated in our lives. I wouldn't trade it, but there is an expiration date on some of these things. And as I
Mm.
laid with one of my boys last night, I don't know why I wasn't particularly sentimental, but he he tucked his feet between my thighs. We were cuddling in his bed,
Mm.
and when they were smaller, they would put their feet would just go right between my thighs. And now they're getting taller, and so now it's, their legs go through my thighs. And I was laying there going, how many more of these do I have?
Hmm.
Because it's not just their feet anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's their whole legs. And so pretty soon they're not going to tuck their legs between my legs anymore. And I was thinking about those opportunities that right now, because of the season that we're in, which is pure chaos. And this goes back a little bit to the choosing what lens you see things through
Yeah.
of, because sometimes I'll admit I get annoyed when my kids want to cuddle multiple times. Like, right? I'm like, I
Sure.
have stuff that I want to do, like, and then it's
Yep.
this reality of what life save. I mean, it's not like I'm going to go perform cardiac surgery after I cuddle with them. Like, there is nothing that I am doing that is so important, and especially compared to the short timeline I have left of them saying, "Mom, will you come play with me? Will you
Mm.
cuddle with me a second time? Can you do this?" I love your word. I think that like I am becoming present needs to be my go-to for this holiday season, so that I am really living. We're in these peak years right now where they're going to remember
Hmm.
these things. And I want
Yeah.
them to remember peace and love and joy, not stress and chaos and
Hmm.
mom freaking out. And I want to say yes to those opportunities. And so this is, yeah, like so I'm in a season of some of my other to-do lists, some of those things that are also very important to me professionally and mentally.
Yeah.
Um, but I have time. I have time to do those things. They will still be there. Their little feet won't tuck between my legs forever. Your dog might not always want to go on 3 walks a day. So
Hmm.
take them while you can, because that's the
Yeah.
season that you're in. And let's be present for
Mm.
this season of life and celebration, and finding the opportunity that this particular season gifts us.
Yes. I think this is the one of the best times, or as you're saying that, to really lean into our values. And I think that's something I feel like it comes up on every episode I do. Of just those prioritizations get so much easier when you know what you value. At least me personally, as I think about the holidays, right? Like you said, it is funny how I mentioned the gifts, and that's one of my biggest stressors. And then I look at my
That wasn't
values
on
and I
your
go,
list.
that's not the like that's not the thing. And so it's like, how can I take off that pressure and just look at it differently? Because it's like, what really does matter? It's the being together, it's the celebrating, it's the connection, and just that even with the people I can't celebrate the holidays with, just due to where we live or even friendships, just taking that moment to reach out and acknowledge and just like lean into
Yeah.
those things this season versus all the other things that might take up so much of our time. So, oh, I feel like we're all going to be, we're becoming present, not perfect, I think is going to be a great takeaway for many of us as we go into this holiday season for sure.
I hope so. I'm going to write it down as soon as we're done
Yes,
chatting, because I think
me
I need
too.
to remind myself of that every
Yes.
day.
Yes, I think that's my new Post-it note on my screen, that I work on every day.
Yes.
Um, well, I appreciate so much of your time today, and as we like as we wrap up, I always like to end with just a couple rapid fire questions that are more
Okay.
just fun to help listeners learn about you. So, the first one: what is your beverage of choice?
Coffee.
Do you like just black coffee? Do you like it spruced up a little bit?
Spruce up a little bit around home, just a little cream. I do love a good extra hot latte.
Ooh, okay. Do you have a favorite coffee shop in Fargo that you go to?
I've been saying lately any of them, because it's an excuse to get me out of my house.
Fair.
So just
Yep.
getting out somewhere is delightful.
I love that. Yes. What's your favorite way to unwind?
A lot of cuddling and watching movies lately.
Mm.
Um, we did go on a nice long family bike ride on
Ooh.
Saturday morning in the cold. But we were on the trails down by the river in
Mm.
Fargo, and it
Beautiful.
was it was so great. So those opportunities to be out in nature really
Mhm.
are, if I'm truly unwinding, like in a mental unwinding way, I think anything that I can do outside in my garden,
Mhm.
on trails, hiking, biking, that will do it. Otherwise, I'm kind of doing it right now, engaging in thoughtful, meaningful conversations.
Yeah, I love that. We talked about joy and just being grateful earlier. So, what is something that you're grateful for today?
I'm grateful that you reached out, and
Mm.
we connected during that Disrupt HR. I had the opportunity to speak at Disrupt HR about joy, and I am I think that like you reaching out reminded me of how great it is to get an attaboy from time to time,
Mm.
and that is a gift I want to give to other people. So I'm grateful and for that act of joy that you started.
Mm. Well, I'm grateful that you said yes, because this conversation has been so fascinating, and I feel very uplifted. Like you were saying, my brain feels just on fire right now in a good way from our conversation today. Um, okay, I love asking this one because I feel like it has gone in a million different directions. If you could eavesdrop on your friends talking about you, what would you want to hear them saying?
That I'm kind,
Mm.
um, and that I'm sincere.
I love that. I think from our conversation and knowing you through this, I have witnessed both of those characteristics in you. So,
Oh, thank you.
okay, lastly, as we close, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I think similar, through the work that I'm doing with teachers for schools, the work I will call it work that I'm doing with raising my children, I want people to remember how connected we all are. And I
Mm,
think if I could help people do two things. One, um, see how connected they are and reinforce those connections that they have in their homes, in their communities, in the world, that we are this interconnected um, being all together, this collective. I would want that that is the piece of it, and that through that, we embrace our opportunities to be helpers with
mm,
each other. And so as we connect, like we can connect and build those connections through helping, but also the connections themselves help.
mm.
And so those acts of service and that connection and helping, I would hope to be my legacy.
Mm, I love that. I think so much of the conversation we had today really, really highlights that you're working towards that. And I know we didn't get to dive into the educators lab that you have started. So we might have to have a follow-up conversation to dive into that because
Maybe.
I think the work that you're doing is incredible for teachers and educators. Um, but with that, Darcy, I just want to say a huge thank you for joining me on the podcast today. It was so fun to learn about your story, and I feel like we just had such an insightful conversation that I know people are going to relate to. And as we get closer to the holidays, it's going to help us all just feel recentered as we go into a busy season. So, thank you for
Yes.
joining us. Thanks for sharing your story. And again, thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in for another episode. We will catch you next month. Thanks again, Darcy.
Thank you, Carrie. Bye.